Huh?
together to see people literally giving the shirts off their back or anything they had out of their home if they had a
Uh-huh.
home left. It's really what
Last
inspires
time, eh?
myself,
Okay.
Blake, and DeAndre, my producer,
Your supervisor or our
about
supervisor?
this film was in such a
Okay,
horrible
okay,
time
I'm coming.
of devastation. It's just the beauty of humanity that was going on. It made me feel for humanity.
I think he's absolutely right about community. You know, we can see with climate change that these really
Give comfort.
weather-related disasters are coming
Huh?
every year around the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, come for you.
Actually, that efficient.
So
In the
we have to
sense
go.
that we're becoming our own first responders in these disasters because, you know, people don't get there right away. And especially at the start of a disaster, if you've got a strong community that's looking out for each other, that knows where people are, that has a plan to deal with problems, you know, these are the things that are going to help people survive.
I think the reaction there, the reaction there was particularly that there wasn't immediate help. There wasn't help in the aftermath. Not several days. They were entirely self-sufficient.
This is going to happen more and more because, you know, there are problems ranging from services just being overwhelmed and not able to get to everyone, which we've seen with fires a lot of places around. You know, it just is. There are also cuts in the United States now to FEMA, to a lot of the services that people rely on for the warnings, for things like response. You know, we are going to have to figure out ways within our own communities to be ready for these things, prepared for them, to do our best. And this is interesting because it shows where that, you know, where it's working and where it's not, right? But it's super important for your emotional well-being, which he's talking about. A strong community where people are backing each other up, recognizing damage and psychological damage is every bit as important as rebuilding that house. Working on those things is crucial.
Tim Judah was quite an affecting film, wasn't it?
Well, I thought especially the first half, which was about the period of the fire, where almost all of the footage was from body cams and helmet cams from the firemen and people's mobile phones. I mean, the most incredible scenes were like people who'd been driven literally into the sea because they were trying to get away from the fire, holding their phones, filming themselves in the sea with the fire, you know, or just coming right down to the beach. And made me think, you know, if people in Pompeii in 79 AD had mobile phones, this is what we would have seen. So I thought that was really visceral, but it also made months made with exactly this type of phone footage, phone and body cam footage. I saw one about combat medics in Ukraine called Cuba and Alaska, the names being nothing to do with Cuba and Alaska, it's just to do with the fact that those are the call signs of two of the combat medics. And it's a fantastic film, but made in the same way. It makes me think that there's kind of a huge future. We're going to see much more of this in the years to come, because it means, you know, this is like when things happen, not when filmmakers turn up, you know, like 2 months later or 3 months later. So, you know, really visceral stuff.
And Laurie, these catastrophic events, you say they're becoming more common. They're becoming events in places that you wouldn't expect. There is extreme weather. There has been historically in certain parts of the US, but you know, southern Europe has seen catastrophic flooding within the last year and a bit. There are parts of the world where these disasters are simply unexpected.
Absolutely. I mean, climate change is really changing things, not only making things worse, but things like flooding. Generally, it's people that live near water that have been worried about flooding in, you know, over a long period of time. But now there's such intense rainfall that you can get flooding in places where there is no water, you know, but just because it's building up in areas. We saw a little bit of that with that happened in Appalachia, North Carolina, in the U.S. Not so long ago. You know, so you really can't think that I'm living in a safe place. This has never happened to me. What you have to think now is, you know, this stuff could happen, and now is the time to prepare.
Well, one detail of the film which was significant for me and something that I've done recently was that they talked about how one of the reasons for the fire, not the reason, but one of the reasons for the fire was to do with the fact that water from further up in the coast has been diverted to places on the coast, so for tourist hotels, etc. So it means that a lot of the areas around places like Lahaina were kind of much drier and more vulnerable to fires. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting, because in summer I went to places in Albania where exactly the same thing has happened. And actually talking about community, it's communities organising in these kind of villages and small towns inland in Albania, because their water is being diverted to the coast for tourist hotels, and they're worried not only about losing water, but exactly about this type of stuff.
Thank you. You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm Paul Henley with Weekend. A reminder of the main news headlines. The US government shutdown is entering its 40th day, with the Republicans and Democrats divided still over how to end the deadlock in Congress. And the Syrian leader, Ahmed al-Shara, once an Islamist fighter with a bounty on his head, has arrived in Washington ahead of talks with President Trump. 7 pioneers of artificial intelligence received a top engineering award this week from King Charles in London. The Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering is awarded annually to those behind innovations that benefit humanity. One of those awarded was Professor Yoshua Bengio from Canada. He spent most of his professional career helping to develop the technologies that would pave the way for AI. But he's now one of the leading voices of those warning against the dangers of artificial intelligence. My colleague Sean Lay has been speaking. Professor Bengio started by explaining what had first caused him to become concerned.
It's the arrival of ChatGPT about 3 years ago. We have built machines that understand us, that understand language. And what's the next step? We don't know how to control them. Right now we see behavior. These systems are crossing our red lines, our moral instructions. And unexpectedly for most researchers, we've seen to their AIs, because those AIs behave like humans, except they are always, flattering and make you feel good, but it's also creating psychological problems, even psychosis. The question that I don't think science has an answer for is, can they be like us? So we already see that they have goals, that they can strategize to achieve their goals, and sometimes those goals are not good. Those goals can be preserving themselves at the expense
Today is the 9th
of our other instructions.
November
This is the sort of thing
2025.
that got me to pivot in starting to really worry, because if we were to build entities that want to preserve themselves and are smarter than us, it would be like creating a new species on this planet of entities that are more capable than us, and that would threaten our future.
It's a fascinating theoretical idea, but a lot of people it will sound like science fiction.
It does, but if you go back yourself 5 years ago, did you imagine that we would have machines that understand you, can speak 200 languages? The measurements of the AI capabilities are just going up, in fact exponentially fast in some ways.
But in a sense, isn't even our language inadequate to kind of have these debates? Because you talk about these machines understand, but they're not intelligence in their own right. They react to inputs that come from us as people.
Not
We learn, not truth.
being able to predict correctly, to act, to achieve goals. If they did not understand our questions, they couldn't solve so many problems. They couldn't win mathematical medals. They couldn't pass all the exams that they're passing. They couldn't even translate well. Now, they don't understand in exactly the same ways as we do. In some ways they're smarter, in other ways they're dumber. They don't plan as well right now, but it's all changing. They are becoming more and more powerful in some ways and more agentic, more like living entities. Also, the other thing that worried me then, and worries me now a lot, is the power that these systems will have can be misused, can be in the hands of people who just want more power, who want to destroy things in our societies. As the capabilities of AI increase, it is going to enable concentration of power, first economic power and then political and military power, that has never